Blasting is definitely a move that requires playboats. It's simply a front or back surf in the trough of the hole, but it's required that you have a short, high-rockered boat. Okay, to initially learn how to blast, ferry out onto the top of the foam pile, paddle straight as you can, straight into the green water, leaning back on your boat. Now when you ride up onto the green water, make sure you're leaning back and trying to keep the boat as straight as you can. Your bow should lift up on the green water and your rear end should go into the trough of the hole. If you keep the boat flat and use either stern draws or rudders, you should be able to keep it straight with a little bit of practice. Now the key to blasting is to make sure that you don't drop a left edge or a right edge. You keep the boat flat. If you drop your edge, the boat will immediately carve off to the side. Let's talk about spinning in holes. Now normally we'd talk about blasting after we talk about spinning. But because blasting spins are now so common, learning to blast is one of the quickest ways to learn how to spin as well, simply because you don't have to go to the corner. Okay, once you can spin in holes, you're pretty much able to maneuver in a hole at your own will. Spinning around to face the other direction in a hole is step one. Since we learned to blast already, it won't be too hard to spin in the middle of the hole, if the hole isn't too steep. Okay, start from the side surf. Do a forward sweep to get yourself into the blast, pointed upstream. Once you're pointed straight upstream, drop the edge that you want to turn towards, and your bow should carve over and fall to the other side. It'll put you in a side surf facing the other way. You just did a 180 in the hole. To continue the spin, simply do a back sweep and lean forward to blast the stern upstream. Then drop the edge you want to spin towards, and your stern will fall back into a side surf. Now there are a couple key things to make sure that this works for you. Number one, when you sweep the bow upstream and you try to do your first 180, you need to keep your weight back and the boat flat. If you drop your upstream edge in the middle of it, you'll do a power flip over. If you don't lean back enough, then your bow will catch and you'll end her out or again catch an edge. In order to keep your boat free and without any edge catching, you need to keep it flat and weight back. Now if you want to do continuous spins, you're going to use the same technique, you just won't pause in a side surf. You just keep the spin momentum up by leading with your body and keeping your weight over the boat. So you'll do the into the blast, let your bow drop, and as your bow's dropping, you'll start your back sweep. So you'll just continue the motion. You'll actually find that that's easier than starting and stopping. Most people have found once they learn to spin in the hole, one of the quickest ways to maneuver to the other side is just to simply spin all the way over. All right, now let's talk about turning on the corner of holes. Now on the corner of the hole, the water will help you do the turn simply because you're putting your ends past the foam pile. So there's no longer foam pile holding that end from drifting downstream. So the current will allow the end to drift downstream and you simply facilitate the spin. The problem with spinning on corners is it tries to spin you off the hole so you end up out in the middle of the current. Now I'm going to give you a very important technique for spinning on the corners that allow you to stay in a hole. This technique is actually a basic rule for all spins, cartwheels, and other moves, and it is this. Always apply power on your paddle strokes in the direction that you want to move the boat. Simply put, if you want to spin on the corner, all of your strokes should push you towards the center of the hole. Any strokes that push you out away from the hole will immediately walk you off the hole and you'll be out. Okay, here's a few troubleshooting tips. If you don't keep the boat flat enough, you'll catch an edge before you get the boat past 12 o'clock or straight upstream. If you're spinning in the trough of the hole or in the center of the hole, you will find that you're going to end her off unless you weight the downstream end of the boat. With this information, you should be prepared for spinning, surfing, and rolling in holes. What do you say we move on to cartwheels now?
So cartwheels are incredibly fun moves. It is essentially the bread and butter move of playboating. You're going to be able to learn split wheels, clean cartwheels, tricky woos from this move, not to mention the fact that it's very fun and extremely addictive once you start doing it.
Now listen, you've practiced in flat water. The whole technique is pretty much the same for cartwheels, except you have to stay in the hole and the water's doing lots of crazy things, so you have to adjust for it. Alright, step one for learning to cartwheel in a hole. You need to be on top of the pile. Now you can start either on top of the pile by dropping into the hole with enough speed that it lifts you to the top, or ferrying in from the side right onto the top of the pile. Or you can spin on the corner of the hole that will get you to the top. All three of these things will get you back in a position to start the cartwheel. The second thing you're going to want to do is spot your target. That target is right where the green water and the foam meet. Not only where they meet, but you need to pick a point that looks deep enough to do the cartwheel and looks like the foam pile is strong enough to hold you in. Spot the target, and that's where you want to keep your eyes. Now you're on the top of the hole. Your objective is to get some upstream speed with your boat pointed at 12 o'clock, straight to the oncoming current. The moment your bow is about to hit the green water, drop the edge of your boat to about 60 degrees and then do your bow initiation stroke. What's the bow initiation stroke? It's the second part of your double pump. It's the part where you slam the bow down. Now as soon as your bow goes under, take the stroke out of the water and switch to the stern initiation stroke immediately. Why? This helps you maintain the momentum and keep the bow going all the way around. If you want to learn how to get your stern through and eventually learn how to link ends, you need to keep your edge dropped about the same amount that you dropped it on the bow. Basically, you want to spot your target until you're vertical on the bow. Once you're vertical on the bow, switch to turn your head and spot it again so you can watch the stern hit the water. Here's some common mistakes. Number 1, waiting too long on the bow initiation stroke, which stops your spin momentum and gets you behind the turn. Also, leaning back when you get vertical stops your momentum and generally flushes you out of the hole. Leaning back on the stern also prevents you from getting your third end, either because you flush out or because by leaning back it slows your momentum and you can't catch up again. Finally, you must practice keeping the edge at an angle that will slice into the water. Most people by default either drop too little edge or too much edge, and they usually don't do both, so it's easy to fix once you determine what you're doing. Now what about linking ends, or staying in the hole? As far as linking ends and staying in the hole is concerned, it's dependent upon keeping your body still. You want to stay ahead of the turn with your torso, you want to spot your target, apply power on your strokes in the direction you want to hold the boat, and you'll find that you can stay in the hole. Strong holes staying in isn't an issue. It's the weak holes, the ones that if you were to tip over you would flush out of, that are the most difficult to stay in. Your focus for staying in holes when you're initially trying to link cartwheels is that every stroke you take is either going to be pushing you out of the hole or pulling you into the hole. You, of course, want to try to spend as much time pulling yourself into the hole as possible and as little time jamming the paddle in to initiate and pushing yourself out.